What's going on, everyone? So in today's video, I thought it was good to take some time out and talk about how to know if a card is good and give you guys 5 factors to telling if a card is good or not. So without further ado, let's begin. Starting by saying the reason why I want to make this video because from time and time again I get people asking me, hey, is this card good? Hey, should I play this card in my deck? Hey, should I tech this? Hey, should I tech that? The list can go on from there. They even talk about decks as well, but decks is a whole nother can of worms. So with that being said, I made a list right here, and it is 5 ways I think it is. If the card passed these tests, you would know if the card is good. So starting with number 5, how much advantage does a card gain? Now, from time to time again, and from format and format again, with a new set is dropped, we get cards that can gain us advantage easily. A great example of that, or a simple example of that, will be Pot of Greed and or Pot of the one that banishes 10 from the top of the deck. Those cards are obviously good because they're a +1, they gain you advantage, and allowing you to net into your deck to gain more cards that will gain you either more advantage and just help you win the game. You also have cards that are just generically good for Archetype, like Deneb, Sotelo Knight, etc. Like, usually when you're looking at a card and telling if it's good, you want to see, is it a -1, is it a 1-for-1, or does it gain you advantage? 1-for-1 cards usually are good. Now, what these terms mean, -1 mean when you play a card and it doesn't replace itself and it doesn't replace anything on your opponent's field. Let's say, for example, playing a card like Okazi that burns your opponent for 800. It's a -1. Even though it burns your opponent for damage, it's a -1. Or a card that's a 1-for-1, like say, for example, Fisher, where it is a 1-for-1 board wipe. It used to be ran back in the day, example. So, and then you also have cards that are +1, like Pot of Greed. So if a card gains advantage, or sometimes if it's a 1-for-1 that the format calls for, it's definitely a great card that you guys should pick up and or hold on to. Number 4, is the card generic? Now, what I mean by this is, can the card be used in any deck? Is the card bound to an archetype? Now, for example, cards like Fisher, Smash and Ground, Raigeki are all generic cards. You can throw them in any deck and it would not disrupt the flow of the deck. Versus a card like, let's say, Destiny Draw, where you can only run in a Destiny Hero deck, technically, and that's going to go back into a later point in the video. But overall, usually the generic cards are pretty good, especially ones printed back in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh! We have Raigeki, Dark Hole, Heavy Storm, Hyper Feather Duster, Giant Trunade, most cards which have gotten hit on the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG ban list. And for good reason. They're cards that can go in anything, and they're generically good. And if you have cards that are like that, Konami eventually hits them with the ban hammer, simply due to the fact that they can't make money off of cards that are generic, because everyone would just play the same deck, and no one will invest into the new decks, which is why you have things like Go format, which everyone considers the best format, just due to the fact that back in that format, everyone pretty much played the same cards. And since everyone played the same cards, it was easier to tell if an opponent had more skill than you, or if you had more skill than an opponent, simply due to the fact that who can play their cards the best. Kind of like playing checkers or chess. Number 3, is the card played in OCG? Now, a lot of players would disagree with this, but I'm a high advocate of studying the OCG when it comes down to looking at the TCG. Reason being, OCG gets the card first. Simple common sense, but a lot of people don't agree with this. And the reason why a lot of people don't agree with this is because they feel like OCG is a different game. They get the cards first, but at the same time, their format's completely off. But at the same time, you guys have to admit, if Zodiac was good in the OCG, Zodiac's going to be good in the TCG. It's common sense once again. If the tech card like Forbidden Chalice is good in the OCG to fight off Zodiacs, Forbidden Chalice is going to be good in the TCG to fight off Zodiacs. Simple thing. So this is about simply looking at the OCG. You guys can soak up game and learn how to beat certain decks based on how players beat them in the OCG. For example, me myself, back in the 2012 format, going into the 2013 format, I was looking for a good deck to play after my deck windups got hit. I noticed gadgets were running Ultimate Offering in the OCG with double summon, and they were doing pretty good. So I'm like, you know what, the gadgets seem like they're going to be the next best deck. A lot of them are topping in the OCG. Let me build my gadget deck, double summon with Ultimate Offering, and guess what happened? I got my first regionals top 8. So there's a lot of things you guys can do by studying the OCG. You can soak up a lot of game and that still holds true today. World Chalice is a deck in the LCG that a lot of players are in the TCG is hyping up right now because it did top a lot of OCG decks. I mean, advanced when they first came out, but a lot of TCG players, based on studying the OCG, saw how World Chalice stopped topping because decks like True Draco, Zodiac, and Dinosaurs are just too freaking powerful. So by studying the LCG, guys, you guys can learn a lot of games. So yeah, just study the LCG. Number 2, if it belongs to an archetype, can that archetype be splashed? Meaning, a card like Destiny Draw, for example, can the Destiny Hero archetype be splashed into a different deck and or archetype and make your own unique deck? The Destiny Draw example was, like I said earlier in the video, is a good example just simply due to the fact that Destiny Draw was a great example of a card that was abused and used in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh! For a multitude of decks like the Diamond Dude Turbo deck, the Perfect Circle deck, the list can go on from there. And we have a lot of we have a lot of examples rather of decks that are splashed into different decks, like the Zodiac engine in our past format where you had Trident, Rats, etc. were all splashed into any deck. Like you can have Zodiac Dinosaurs, Zodiac Gadgets, Zodiac Spiral, the list goes on, because those decks, Trident and that card Trident is just that powerful. So if it belongs to an archetype and it gives that archetype a lot of advantage and it's generic in its own archetype and it could be splashed, I highly recommend testing it out in your deck. There's nothing wrong with testing it out, guys, and that's one of the biggest factors a lot of TCG players have. They do not like to test things out. They're stubborn and they're too keen on just copying whatever they see on a regionals list, which is smart because they want the best advantage. But there is a lot of information and a lot of game you can learn just by testing stuff out yourself and listening to your own mind. And last but not least, guys, the number one way to know if a card is good, can it counter the format that it's currently played in? For example, you have cards like Anti-Spell, Fragrance, Royal Decree that are good in their respective formats. Simply due to the fact that if the format is trap heavy, you automatically should be able to know if you have half a brain that Royal Decree is a card to use. Another great example would be Denko Seka when Pendulums were making a comeback with the Magician deck. You can just Pendulum summon out the Denko Seka or normal summon Denko Seka, shut off the back row, and then get your Pendulum summons off and just go off with your Pepe plays. Same thing with Anti-Spell Fragrance back in the Necros format and any spell heavy format you have, whereas like the card is good for said format, it gains advantage, or it just completely shuts the opponent off. I guess that could be a 6th thing I'll talk about, shutting the opponent off. But if it counters decks in the current format, like shutting the opponent off, it's definitely going to be a card that's just good. Because think about it, if you play a card like Anti-Spell Fragrance, shut off somebody who play mainly all spells in their deck, 9 times out of 10 they're going to lose, because with the way Yu-Gi-Oh! Is played nowadays, if you swarm your field and your opponent can't match your advantage with your speed if you're currently at, you're going to be one turn ahead of them always, and that's just going to be enough to just kill you, which is why a lot of people want cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance. Me personally, I want Skill Drain, and cards like Vanity Infinite all got hit because they effectively pit you a turn or two ahead of the opponent, and it allows the opponent to just kill you. And in most cases, like Zodiac for example, forcing the opponent to set their cards with an Anti-Spell Fragrance before they even get a chance to play the card, which is always put them behind, and that's just due to the fact that the opponent will always have the one-up on them and popping their back row with cards like Twin Twister, Dryden's Pop Effect, etc. So overall, guys, if it counters said format, it is a good card. Trust me on that. So with all that being said, guys, I hope you guys learned something. I really want to help people become better players, which is the reason why I started my channel. So yeah, man, this is the 5 factors to know if a card is good. So with all that being said, guys, if you guys have any more factors that you think should have been on the list that were not on the list, post that in the comment section down below. And as I always tell you guys, if you're a new viewer to the channel, I would love for you to subscribe for more competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. I'm uploading a video every single day. I'm going to try to stream every single day or as much as I can. And if you guys want your own custom cloth playmat, you can check out my sponsor MetaMats, link in the description below, to get your own personal custom cloth playmat. So with that being said, guys, this is Chris from Innovation Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm signing out. Peace, guys. Stay innovative. Deuces.